family of Dale Culver and supporters gathered outside of Prince George Courthouse yesterday. They've been waiting for nearly 6 years for answers after Culver, a Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan, 35-year-old father of 3, died during an arrest by RCMP officers in Prince George in 2017. The 5 officers who are facing charges concerning his death were to appear in court, but the case is now delayed more than 2 months. Lily Speed Namox, Dale Culver's daughter, stated even though the case is delayed, they are not going to stop seeking justice.
I had to show our support today and show that even though they might have moved the date, we're not going to stop, we're not going to move. This is still my dad's case. That was my dad's life that got taken away, and that means the world to us.
Virginia Pierre raised Dale Culver. She said after he died, it took 72 hours until they were notified by RCMP. Earlier in the week, the family held a press conference calling for systemic changes. She expressed frustration with the amount of time it's taken to find answers.
72 hours before we found out he's gone. Now we're waiting over 6 years. And then all of a sudden, nothing is happening tomorrow. There's something wrong here.
Last month, the Crown charged 2 RCMP officers with manslaughter in Dale Culver's death. 3 RCMP officers are facing obstruction of justice charges. The court date is now moved to May 2nd. Debbie Pierre was having doubts officers would face charges. Last month, she was relieved to find out the Crown was moving ahead with charges.
I honestly felt it was not going to proceed because this has happened across Canada for how many generations now with no justice. And it gives me hope, but it also with much uncertainty.
In an email statement to APTN News, BC RCMP also expressed concerns about the lengthy process and stated the officers remain on duty. The BC RCMP fully cooperated with the IOBC during the investigation and fully supports independent investigations and judicial reviews of police-involved incidents as required. We do have concerns regarding the nearly 6-year timeline in this instance, though, as it puts undue stress on the man's family and our members and their families in the community, which has been looking for clarity and answers on what occurred. The members are operational, and their duty status is subject to continuous assessment. The Assembly of First Nations BC Regional Chief Terry Teegee called for changes along with the family. His family member Everett Patrick, a 42-year-old father from the Lake Babine Nation, died after suffering a serious injury in the Prince George detachment in 2020. Last year, the police watchdog asked the Crown to consider charges against 1 officer. Chief Teegee stated that inquiries need to be upheld in changes across Canada to address racism against Indigenous people.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the National Action Plan on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, the true and full implementation of Bill C-15, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, provincially C-41, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, need to be fully implemented to combat racism, to combat the view of Indigenous peoples.
Lily Speed Namox wants an apology from the officers involved in her father's tragic death. She stated it is unfair that the officers are on active duty. For the past 6 years, she's worked through her grief and has become a powerful advocate for changes in policing.
I refuse to let my dad's death be forgotten about without some kind of change, and to just be subjected to a number on a case file. And he was my dad and the dad of my 2 younger siblings, and that needs to be known, that he was a person. He wasn't an item or a piece of paper. He was a person just like you or I. He deserved to live.
The family remains determined to find answers to what happened to Dale Culver. Leah Wilson, APTN National News, Prince George.